All right, we're going to talk Aliens Stronghold, which is a 4-issue mini. Came out in 94. It's about a couple, a married couple, that are sent by a company to audit this scientist who is experimenting on the xenomorphs because not all the funds are being allocated properly or something like that. It's very thinly veiled, like, plot to get these people there, where they discover that this scientist is using androids to get xenomorph eggs to sell them on the black market. There is a xenomorph android, synthetic, similar to what we've seen previously. In fact, I don't remember what the comic was called, but the novelization's called Alien Harvest, which deals with the synth that was disguised. It's a xenomorph synth, essentially. And in this comic, smokes cigars, which actually plays a point in the plot. I won't spoil that, but there is a reason for it, and I thought it was kind of fun. What did I think of Stronghold? It's not. There's a couple neat things. I like the synthetics. They're most of the cast is synthetics, but I like the xenomorph one, and there's like a big mech one that is its sole purpose is when if the xenomorphs get out of hand, it goes crazy and just annihilates all of them. And they have a little rapport, the two of those synthetics. The scientist has been there, done that. The character, the couple, they're kind of nothing burgers, especially the husband's a nothing burger. The wife at least is like, hey, I don't like how you treat your synthetics, because like he has like a lab assistant who's like a hot blonde synthetic that he clearly bangs, which is there's a little more to it in the plot that I won't spoil, but not too much. And the scientist is just a turd of a person. But yeah, here's the thing. This is what I talked about this with the YouTuber General Watts, because we talk a lot of alien stuff. This is that era where Dark Horse cared more about the art in Aliens comics than they did about story. And if this omnibus says anything about it, that's clearly what they cared about. That and just putting the Aliens IP name on just anything. And I mean anything. Because we've gotten so much garbage in this omnibus. It's kind of obscene how bad a lot of this has been. Stronghold's on the better end of stuff in this omnibus, but that's not saying much. I mean, it does bring up the queen ovomorph, which is a different type of egg laid by a queen that carries a special type of face hugger that lays a queen alien egg. This is something that is brought up in some versions of Alien 3, but was initially cut from the theatrical cut, where H.R. Giger actually designed the ovomorph egg and the face hugger to make it more queen-like, a la what James Cameron designed the queen alien to look like in Aliens. And if you've seen the assembly cut, or the fan-made legacy cut that came out last year, you will see that I never remember who the convicts' names are, but it's essentially where we get the Bambi Burster, where it initially came out of a yak. In that scene, when they first find they're like going to process the meat of this yak, they find a weird face hugger in that scene, and that is the queen face hugger, essentially, and that is kind of referenced as a thing that happens in this. I don't quite remember if that stays canon or not. You gotta understand, by this point in the Alien publications, the novels were getting a switch to include Alien 3. Because by this point, Steve Perry and Stephanie Perry had been contracted to do novelizations of Mike Virden's initial Aliens comics. So those were getting redone, and then of course, I think it was David Bischoff wrote Genocide. I'm sorry, Genocide, because YouTube will flag me for saying that word. But like there was a concise effort to add Alien 3 in, because Alien 3 contradicted what was established. And Dark Horse didn't really follow that. They would add things from Alien 3 here or there, but they never really cared, or at least at this point they didn't care. Because we'll see some stuff with this again when we get to Resurrection. Because that's another one that's just like, each time we got it, unlike the Star Wars Expanded Universe, where sure, we would get some continuity weirdness from George Lucas compared to what the Expanded Universe had. But there was a dedicated team at Lucasfilm called the Holocron that would fix these things typically, until we got to Dave Filoni's Clone Wars cartoon, where he did so many things that they gave up right around season 2 and said, when this show's over, we'll fix things. Aliens never really had that. In fact, we wouldn't get a story group until, Into Cadras is probably the first time there is reference to a story group. By the time Philippa Ballantine wrote Inferno's Fall, that is written with a story group member in tow. So that's the 2020s now. So Aliens never really had one. And it's very obvious with each sequel just being contradictive after like the next, especially when we get into like Prometheus and all that. Like stuff just doesn't make sense. But it starts with Alien 3. And this omnibus is a testament to 90s IP excess is what I'll call it, which very few IPs get the amount of just stuff that Aliens would get for Alien 3. The only movie I can think of that got potentially more media and more like tie-in material would be the Phantom Menace. The difference being that this is probably the most tie-in material that Dark Horse would ever greenlight for any movie. Because they greenlit so many Aliens comics. In fact, most of this second omnibus came out in, it's stuff that was published in 1993. There's a handful of things came out in 94, but it's mostly stuff in 1993. And we're not even counting Alien 3, the comic adaptation that's in Volume 1. This is insane. It's insane that they just greenlit anything and everything. I mean, only Aliens Colonial Marines, the comic, would be greenlit in 1993. They would never... That would be rejected today. Because it's so bad and so all over the place. Like, things like that are just so terrible. And honestly, Stronghold's just not that good. It's okay. It's got decent art, but the story kind of is been there, done that. And that's the thing with Alien as an IP. It is the same story over and over again. The good ones are when they put a little twist on the story that's kind of interesting. And most of these comics don't do that. I mean, hell, they're still repeating this type of storyline into the modern day. Like, very rarely do they do something else. And, like, I dog on the Titan Books era of Alien and Aliens. Because it's mostly terrible. And my channel is testament to that. Because I've read everything but, I think, 3 books in that, and they're just, for the most part, bad. There's a handful of good ones and some okay ones, but it's mostly terrible stuff. Especially the 2020s era stuff. It's some of it's unreadable. Um, and with the 90s stuff, I truly mean it when I say this is also bad. Is it as politically charged as the Titan book stuff? No. It doesn't have that nuisance stuff. But, I mean, like, the politically charged stuff is more... Like, I remember that stuff more than I remember this stuff. So it's kind of a pick your poison kind of thing. And, like, this was the first Aliens omnibus to completely sell out because of that Aliens magazine comic that had never been finished. I think that's the only reason that anyone cared to buy this. That wasn't just a hardcore Aliens fan like myself. Am I glad I read through this omnibus? Sure. A lot of this I had never read before, and probably will never read again, if I'm being completely honest. What would I rank Stronghold? Probably a 2.9 out of 5. And it only gets a 2.9 because of the art and having a xenomorph android that smokes cigars. That's the only reason it gets that. Otherwise, it's a 1 out of 5 story. But with that being said, it's more I'm burnt out on Aliens because of this stuff. Because this stuff is so bad. I just don't want anything to do with it. I'm still going to power through. In fact, reading-wise, I'm already on the 3rd omnibus, and we've got some interesting things to talk about in there, so stay tuned. Overall, this is one of the worst omnibuses I have fully reviewed on this channel, bar none. Because it is a testament to what happens when a company just decides that a movie is going to be the hill they die on when it comes to marketing, and then that's the hill they die on for the movie. It turns out to be a movie that everyone hates. Everyone hates Alien 3. I mean, nowadays people like myself appreciate what it tried to do. In fact, I think the Legacy cut is a great example of fans fixing a flawed film. It's not fully fixed, but it's a nice repair on some of the stuff I had a problem with. But overall, this is not good. Music of the Spears is probably the number one thing I would recommend. Labyrinth has some interesting things in it, but honestly, the rest of this you could I wouldn't recommend. Like Rogue, Colonial Marines and that Aliens magazine story are the worst two by far. I couldn't even tell you what the point was of either of them. They're both incredibly terrible. There is a graphic novel, the Mike Mignola one, which was, oh gosh, I don't even remember. Salvation or something. Yeah. Alien Salvation is pretty good. But, like, yeah, I would recommend Salvation, Music of the Spears, and if you really liked messed up horror type stuff, Labyrinth. Everything else I would genuinely skip. Unless you're a hardcore Aliens fan and you're like, you either find this on the used market pretty cheap, or you pay to get the Kindle version. Because you can get this on Kindle, but I would not pay a lot of money for this omnibus. I really wouldn't. In fact, I didn't. I got a good deal on this. Used. This, well, I mean, it was in the shrink wrap still when I got it, but I bought it off of eBay from someone that just didn't want it, so I lucked out there. So, yeah, it's the only one I did that with. The other ones were still available on in-stock trades when I decided I was going to just go through all the Aliens and Predator comics. So, yeah, it's interesting. We're seeing a lot of floundering, and that's like the big thing is that they just put... Unlike with Predator, where Predator 3 just never happened the way they thought it was going to in the 90s, this is floundering because they greenlit too many things. And none of these things really tie into Alien 3 at all, because Alien 3 went through so many rewrites. It's kind of interesting this year. I've really delved into the shit show that was Alien 3, because Paper Movies, we talked about the Alien 3 novelization, which, if it weren't for Covenant, yeah, it was Covenant that brought Alan Dean Foster back, which I truly don't know why he did, other than he wanted a paycheck. He said he would never write another Alien novel again, after the sheer amount of nonsense he went through trying to write Alien 3's novelization. So, anyway, that's all I have for today. See you next time, and we'll check out an interesting Aliens one-shot coming up that I really want to talk about. So anyway, you have a good one.